My fiancé's parents insulted me all through dinner, not knowing I'd just paid off their mortgage. 3 hours before dinner, I was sitting in my financial advisor's office, signing the final papers that would change everything. The wire transfer of $847,000 had just cleared. Every penny of my inheritance from my grandfather's estate, plus my entire savings account. It was supposed to be the down payment on the house Cassie and I had been looking at. Instead, I just paid off her parents' mortgage in full. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Patricia, my advisor, asked for the third time. "This is your entire financial portfolio." I nodded, thinking about the phone call I'd overheard 2 weeks earlier. Cassie's dad talking to someone about losing the house, about how the medical bills from her mom's cancer treatment had buried them, about how they'd rather die than ask their daughter's deadbeat boyfriend for help. Deadbeat boyfriend. That's what they called me when they thought no one was listening. I'd been with Cassie for 3 years. We were getting married in 4 months, and her parents treated me like I was some kind of parasite, feeding off their precious daughter's success. They didn't know about the trust fund. They didn't know my grandfather had left me everything when he died last year. They just saw a guy who worked construction and drove a 10-year-old truck. "The payment's gone through," Patricia confirmed. "Caldwell Residence mortgage paid in full." I tucked the receipt into my jacket pocket and headed to dinner. Cassie's childhood home was a beautiful colonial in the suburbs, or it had been, before the medical bills started piling up. Now I could see the little signs of financial strain everywhere. The peeling paint on the shutters, the driveway that needed repaving, the garden that had been let go. "There he is," her dad said when I walked in. His tone suggested I'd just tracked mud across his carpet. Right on time, for once. I kissed Cassie hello and handed her mom a bouquet of flowers. "These are beautiful," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Cassie, did you pay for these?" My jaw tightened. "I did, actually." Her dad snorted. "Hope you kept the receipt. Probably put them on a credit card." Dinner was torture. Every comment felt like a needle designed to find the most painful spot. When I complimented the meal, her mom mentioned how expensive groceries had become. When I offered to help clear the table, her dad said he didn't want me breaking anything valuable. The worst part was watching Cassie. She just sat there, pushing food around her plate, occasionally shooting me apologetic looks but never saying a word. 3 years, and she still wouldn't stand up to them. "So," her dad said, cutting into his steak with aggressive precision, "have you given any more thought to what we discussed about the wedding budget?" I knew what he meant. They'd been pressuring Cassie to scale everything back, claiming they couldn't afford to help with costs. What they really meant was they didn't want to waste money on someone they thought would be gone within a year. "We're keeping it simple," I said. "Simple is right," he muttered. "Can't squeeze blood from a stone." Her mom jumped in. "We just want what's best for Cassie. Marriage is hard enough without financial stress." The implication hung in the air like poison gas. I was the financial stress. "Speaking of finances," I said, pulling the receipt from my pocket, "I have some good news to share." The silence that followed was deafening. Both parents stared at the bank document like it might bite them. Her dad reached for his reading glasses with trembling fingers, while her mom's fork clattered against her plate. Cassie looked between us, confusion written across her face. "What kind of good news?" her dad asked suspiciously, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mortgage payoff confirmation," I said calmly. "Your house is officially paid off as of 3:47 p.m. today." The silence was deafening. Cassie's fork clattered against her plate. "I don't understand," her mom whispered. Her dad's face went through several colors before settling on a deep red. "This is some kind of joke." "Check your bank account," I suggested. "The funds should be reflected by now." He fumbled for his phone with shaking hands. I watched his expression change as he logged into his banking app. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. $847,000, he read aloud, his voice barely audible. "That was the remaining balance according to my research," I said. "Plus a little extra to cover any processing fees." Cassie grabbed my arm. Where did you? "My grandfather's inheritance," I explained. "He left me everything when he died last year. I've been trying to figure out the best way to help your family without hurting anyone's pride." Her mom started crying, actual tears streaming down her face. "I heard you on the phone 2 weeks ago," I continued, looking directly at her dad, "talking about losing the house, about how the medical bills were drowning you, about how you'd rather die than ask your daughter's deadbeat boyfriend for help." The color drained from his face. "See, that's where you were wrong," I said. "You wouldn't have had to ask. I would have offered. I've been wanting to offer for months. But every time I tried to bring up money or help or anything related to your situation, I got shot down, told to mind my own business, made to feel like some kind of gold digger in reverse." Cassie was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "You had this money the whole time? I didn't want it to change how you saw me," I admitted. "I wanted you to love me for me, not for my bank account. And I definitely didn't want your parents treating me differently because of money." Her dad set his phone down with trembling hands. "Why would you do this?" "Because I love your daughter," I said simply. "Because you're going to be my family. Because watching you stress about money while I had the power to fix it was killing me." "But we've been so—" her mom started, then trailed off. "Horrible to me?" "Yeah, you have been." I kept my voice level. "You've questioned my worth, my motives, my ability to take care of Cassie. You've made jokes about my job, my truck, my clothes. You've treated me like I was some kind of charity case that your daughter took pity on." The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. "And through all of that," I continued, "I kept thinking about how much you were hurting, how scared you must have been about losing this house, how helpless you felt watching those medical bills pile up. I couldn't stand it." Her dad pushed back from the table and walked to the window. His shoulders were shaking. I need you both to understand something, I said. This isn't about buying your approval. This isn't about proving I'm good enough for Cassie. This is about family taking care of family, even when that family hasn't been particularly kind. Cassie's mom wiped her eyes with her napkin. We've been terrible to you. You've been scared, I corrected. I get it. Your daughter started dating some guy you didn't know, and then your world fell apart financially. It probably felt like everything was spinning out of control. Her dad turned back from the window. How long have you known about the money problems? Officially, 2 weeks. But I've suspected for months. Little things. You stopped talking about vacation plans. You started buying generic groceries. You canceled your subscription to that magazine you always read. Your mom started doing her own hair instead of going to the salon. They looked at each other, surprised that I'd noticed such small details. I pay attention, I said, especially to the people my future wife loves. Future wife, her dad repeated slowly. If she'll still have me after this, I said, looking at Cassie. I know I should have told you about the inheritance sooner. I was just scared that everything would change between us. Cassie was quiet for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind of laughter that happens when stress finally breaks. You paid off their mortgage, she said. You literally just wrote a check for almost $1 million because you overheard a phone conversation. When you put it that way, it sounds kind of crazy, I admitted. It is crazy, she said. It's completely insane and wonderful, and I can't believe you did this. She stood up and kissed me so hard I nearly fell off my chair. I love you, she whispered against my lips. I love you so much it hurts. Her dad cleared his throat. I think I owe you an apology. You owe me several apologies, I said, but I was smiling. But I understand why you were protective. If I had a daughter, I'd want to make sure any guy she brought home was worthy of her too. We just assumed, her mom started. You assumed that because I drive an old truck and work with my hands, I couldn't possibly be serious relationship material, I finished. I get it. But you know what? I love that truck, and I love my job. My grandfather taught me that a man's worth isn't measured by his bank account or his job title. It's measured by how he treats the people he loves. Her dad sat back down heavily. Your grandfather sounds like he was a wise man. He was. He was also a plumber who saved every penny for 60 years and invested it wisely. He taught me that money is just a tool. It's what you do with it that matters. The mention of my grandfather brought back a flood of memories. I could almost see him sitting at his kitchen table every Sunday morning, going through his bills and investments with the same meticulous care he brought to fixing pipes. He'd inherited that little house from his own parents and never saw any reason to leave it, even when his investments started paying off in a big way. Tell me about him, her mom said softly. Your grandfather. I leaned back in my chair, thinking about how to sum up a man who'd basically raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. His name was Eddie Kozlov. He came to this country with nothing but a toolkit and a determination to build something better for his family. What happened to your parents? Her dad asked, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light when I was 12. My grandfather took me in without hesitation, even though he was already in his 60s and had been looking forward to retirement. Cassie reached over and squeezed my hand. She'd heard this story before, but never in front of her parents. He could have put me in foster care, I continued. Would have been easier for him. Instead, he canceled his retirement plans and kept working until I graduated high school. Made sure I had everything I needed, clothes, school supplies, college fund. Never once made me feel like a burden. Her mom's eyes were filling with tears again. He sounds wonderful. He was. But he was also the most practical man I've ever known. He taught me that money doesn't make you better than anyone else. It just gives you more options. And with more options comes more responsibility. What kind of responsibility? Her dad asked. To use it wisely. To help people when you can. To never forget where you came from. I paused, thinking about all the conversations we'd had about money and worth and what really mattered in life. He used to say that the best investment you can make isn't in stocks or real estate. It's in relationships, in family, in taking care of the people you love. Is that why you kept the inheritance secret? Cassie asked. Because of something he taught you? I nodded. He warned me about people who might want me for the wrong reasons. He'd seen it happen to other families who came into money. Suddenly everyone wants to be your friend. Everyone has their hand out. Everyone's looking at you differently. But we're not everyone, her dad said. We're family. You weren't treating me like family, I pointed out. You were treating me like a threat. The silence that followed was heavy with uncomfortable truth. Can I ask you something? Her mom said finally. What would you have done if we'd never found out? If we'd lost the house and you just watched it happen? I thought about that for a moment. I would have found another way. Maybe bought the house at foreclosure and let you rent it back for whatever you could afford. Maybe hired your dad at my construction company for a really good salary. I don't know, but I wouldn't have let you lose your home. Your construction company? Her dad asked. Yeah, I own it. Kozlov Construction. Started it with money my grandfather left me when I turned 21. Just a small amount then, sort of a starter fund. The big inheritance didn't come until he died last year. Cassie stared at me. You own a construction company and I'm just finding this out now? I told you I worked construction, I said defensively. I just didn't specify that I owned the company. That's a pretty big detail to leave out, she said. I was trying to avoid this exact situation, I explained. People treat you differently when they know you own the business versus when they think you're just another worker. Her dad leaned forward. How big is this company? 12 full-time employees, about 30 regular contractors we call in for bigger jobs. We specialize in historic renovations and custom homes. Last year, we grossed about $3 million. The number hung in the air like a bomb that had just gone off. $3 million, her mom repeated faintly. Gross, I emphasized. Not profit. There are a lot of expenses in construction. Insurance, equipment, materials, payroll. My actual salary is pretty modest. How modest? Cassie asked. I sighed. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid. About $200,000 a year plus whatever I pull out for business expenses. $200,000, her dad said slowly. And you've been letting us think you were just scraping by. I wanted you to know me for who I am, not what I have, I said. I wanted you to see that I work hard, that I'm dedicated, that I care about quality and integrity. I didn't want money to be part of the equation, but it is part of the equation, her mom said. Whether we like it or not, financial stability matters in a marriage, which is exactly why I didn't want to tell you, I said, because then it becomes about the money instead of about love. Her dad was shaking his head. I've been treating you like you couldn't afford to take care of my daughter, and the whole time I've been taking care of myself just fine, I finished, and planning to take care of her just fine too. Show me, he said suddenly. Show you what? The business, your house, your life, the real version, not the one you've been showing us. I looked at Cassie, who nodded. I think that's a good idea, she said. I'd like to see it too, actually. The real version. The next day, I picked them up in my truck. Not because I was trying to maintain a facade, but because I genuinely loved that truck. It was a 2014 Ford F-150 that I'd bought used and restored myself. My grandfather had taught me that a good truck was a man's most important tool, and this one had been with me through everything. This is your truck, her dad said, running his hand along the polished blue paint. You restored this yourself? Every inch, I said. New engine, new transmission, custom interior. My grandfather would have loved it. It's beautiful, her mom said, and for the first time she sounded like she meant it. Our first stop was the construction company. The office was modest, just a converted warehouse in an industrial part of town, but it was efficient and professional. I introduced them to Miranda, my office manager, and Tommy, my foreman. This is Cassie and her parents, I told them, the ones I've been telling you about. Tommy grinned. The future in-laws who've been giving you such a hard time? Her dad looked embarrassed. I suppose we have been giving him a hard time. He's a good boss, Miranda said. Fair, honest, pays well, treats everyone with respect. You should be proud to have him in the family. We toured the workshop where my crew restored old doors and windows, where they built custom cabinets and trim work. Everything was clean, organized, professional. The kind of operation that spoke to quality and attention to detail. How long have you been doing this? Her mom asked, watching one of my carpenters work on an intricate piece of molding. I started the company 7 years ago, I said. But I've been doing construction work since I was 14. My grandfather made sure I learned a trade, something that would always be in demand. Smart man, her dad said. From there, we drove to one of my current job sites, a historic Victorian that we were restoring for a local bank that had been converted into a bed and breakfast. The level of detail work was incredible, the kind of craftsmanship that took real skill and patience. We're booked out about 18 months, I explained as we walked through the house. Historic renovations take time, and there aren't many crews in the area who specialize in this kind of work. Her dad stopped at a window we'd just installed, running his fingers along the custom trim work. This is museum-quality craftsmanship. That's the goal, I said. My grandfather taught me that if you're going to put your name on something, it better be something you're proud of. Finally, we drove to my house, the small ranch I'd bought 3 years ago, and had been slowly renovating. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid and comfortable, with a workshop in the garage and a garden in the backyard where I grew vegetables like my grandfather had taught me. This is where you live? Cassie asked. Looking around the kitchen, I'd redesigned myself. This is home, I said. I know it's not much compared to what you grew up with, but it's perfect, she interrupted. It's completely perfect. Her parents explored the house quietly, taking in the hardwood floors I'd refinished, the built-in bookshelves I'd constructed, the bathroom I'd completely gutted and rebuilt. Everything was done with the same attention to detail I brought to my professional work. You did all this yourself? Her mom asked, admiring the tile work in the bathroom. Nights and weekends, mostly. It's been a 3-year project. Her dad was standing in the workshop, looking at the tools organized neatly on pegboards, the workbench my grandfather had built and passed down to me. This is where you learned, he said. This is where I still learn, I corrected. Every project teaches you something new. When we got back to their house, we sat in the living room, the same room where they'd been so cold to me just 24 hours earlier. But everything felt different now. I owe you an apology, her dad said. A real one. You already apologized, I said. No, I apologized for being rude. This is bigger than that. He looked at his wife, who nodded encouragingly. I judged you based on my own fears and insecurities. I saw a young man who I thought couldn't provide for my daughter, and instead of getting to know you, I decided you weren't worth knowing. I understand why, I started. No, let me finish, he said. I was wrong. Not just about your financial situation, though. Obviously, I was completely wrong about that. I was wrong about your character. I've spent 3 years watching you treat my daughter with love and respect. I've seen you show up for family dinners even when we made you unwelcome. I've seen you bite your tongue when we said things that must have hurt. He paused, struggling with the words. What I saw today, your business, your home, the way your employees talk about you, that's a man who built something meaningful with his own hands. That's a man any father would be proud to call son. Her mom was crying again. We've wasted so much time, she said. 3 years of dinners where we could have been getting to know you. 3 years of treating you like a stranger instead of family. We can't get that time back, her dad said. But if you'll let us, we'd like to try to make up for it. I felt something loosen in my chest, a tension I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it was there. I'd like that, I said. But even as we talked about moving forward, I knew there were still difficult conversations ahead. The biggest one was waiting for me at home, where Cassie and I were going to have to deal with the fact that I'd kept a year's worth of secrets from the woman I wanted to marry. That conversation happened that night, in the kitchen of my little ranch house, over a bottle of wine and a pizza we'd ordered, because neither of us had the energy to cook. "I need to understand why," Cassie said. "Not the surface reasons, I get those. I need to understand why keeping secrets felt like the right choice to you." I thought about it for a long time before answering. "Because I've been alone for most of my life," I said finally. "After my parents died, it was just me and my grandfather. And after he died, it was just me. I got used to making decisions by myself, used to handling problems by myself. But you're not alone anymore," she said. "You haven't been alone for 3 years." "I know that in my head," I said. "But knowing it and feeling it are different things. When I heard your dad on the phone talking about losing the house, my first instinct was to fix it. By myself, the way I've been fixing problems my whole life. But this wasn't your problem to fix, wasn't it?" I asked. "If we're getting married, if they're going to be my family, then their problems are my problems. At least that's how my grandfather would have seen it." She was quiet for a moment, swirling wine around in her glass. "Tell me about the money," she said. "All of it, from the beginning." So I did. I told her about the modest inheritance I'd received when I turned 21, enough to start the business but not enough to live extravagantly. I told her about how the business had grown, about the investments my grandfather had made that I didn't even know about until he died. I told her about sitting in the lawyer's office a year ago, learning that I was suddenly worth more money than I'd ever imagined. "The house we looked at last month," she said. "You said you put a down payment on it." "I did. The day after we toured it and you said it was your dream house, without talking to me about it. I was going to surprise you," I said. "I had this whole plan. I was going to tell you about the inheritance after we got engaged, and then surprise you with the house as a wedding gift." "A wedding gift," she repeated. "You were going to give me a house as a wedding gift." "Our house," I corrected. "I was going to give us a house." She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Do you see how messed up that is? You were planning our entire future based on information I didn't have. What if I didn't want that house? What if I wanted to be part of choosing our first home together?" I felt the weight of my mistakes settling on my shoulders. "I thought I was being romantic. You were being controlling," she said. "And I know you didn't mean it that way, but that's what it was. You made all these major life decisions. The house, the mortgage payoff, probably a dozen other things I don't even know about yet, without including me." "What other things?" she asked when I didn't respond. I sighed. "I set up a college fund for when we have kids. I bought life insurance policies for both of us. I've been paying for your mom's cancer treatments." Her glass hit the table harder than she'd intended. "You what?" "The insurance doesn't cover everything," I explained. "There are co-pays and experimental treatments and—" "How long?" she interrupted. "How long have you been paying for my mom's treatments?" "Since the diagnosis." "About 8 months." She stood up and walked to the window, her back to me. 8 months. You've been secretly paying my mother's medical bills for 8 months. I couldn't just watch her suffer because of money," I said. "I had the resources to help, so I helped. By lying to me. By lying to them. By making decisions that affected all of our lives without consulting anyone. I was trying to help. You were trying to control," she shot back. "You were trying to be the hero who swooped in and fixed everything without anyone else having to worry about it." She was right, and I knew it. But hearing it laid out so starkly still hurt. "So what happens now?" I asked. She turned back to face me. "Now we figure out if we can build a real partnership. Not one where you make all the big decisions, and I just go along with them." "I want that," I said. "I want to be real partners." "Then we start over," she said. "Complete transparency from here on out. No more surprises, no more secret accounts or mystery purchases. If we're going to do this, we do it together. Even when I think I know what's best?" "Especially when you think you know what's best," she said. "Because relationships aren't about what's best. They're about what we decide together." The next few weeks were harder than I'd expected. Learning to share every decision, to include Cassie in every choice that affected our future, went against every instinct I developed over 29 years of making my own way in the world. But slowly, we found our rhythm. We went to couples counseling, where I learned that good intentions don't excuse poor communication. Where Cassie learned that forgiveness and rebuilding trust are two different processes that happen on different timelines. We visited her parents regularly, and I watched their attitude toward me change from suspicious to accepting to genuinely welcoming. Her dad started calling me for advice about home repairs. Her mom started inviting me to lunch, trying to build the relationship she'd spent 3 years avoiding. "I keep thinking about something you said," her dad told me one afternoon as we worked together on replacing their kitchen faucet. "About family taking care of family." "What about it?" I asked, holding the new faucet in place while he tightened the connections. "I've been so focused on protecting Cassie from what I thought was a bad decision that I forgot she might be making a good one," he said. "I was so worried about her marrying someone who couldn't take care of her that I never considered she might be marrying someone who could take care of all of us. That's not why I did it," I said. "I didn't pay off your mortgage to prove anything." "I know. That's what makes it so extraordinary. You didn't do it for recognition or gratitude. You did it because it needed to be done. And you could do it." He finished tightening the connection and turned the water back on. The faucet worked perfectly. "My father would have liked you," he said suddenly. "Yeah? He was a carpenter. Built houses all over this county back in the 50s and 60s. He always said you could tell a lot about a man by the quality of his work. He gestured around the kitchen, where we'd spent the afternoon making small repairs and improvements. Everything was neat, functional, built to last. He would have recognized a kindred spirit, he said. 3 months after the mortgage revelation, we set a new wedding date. Not because we'd rushed the first one, but because we wanted to start fresh, as the people we'd become, rather than the people we'd been pretending to be. The ceremony was small, held in the garden behind our new house, the Victorian with the wraparound porch that we'd chosen together this time. After long conversations about neighborhoods and budgets and future plans, Cassie's parents helped with everything. Her dad walked her down the aisle, and when the minister asked who was giving her away, he said, "Her mother and I, along with our heartfelt blessing and our promise to love and support this marriage." During his speech at the reception, he talked about second chances and the courage it takes to admit when you're wrong. "I spent 3 years thinking I was protecting my daughter," he said. "What I was really doing was protecting my own pride. It took a man with more wisdom and generosity than I deserved to show me the difference between being a protective father and being a stubborn fool." He raised his glass. "To my son-in-law, who taught an old man that love isn't about the size of your bank account. It's about the size of your heart." But the best part of the evening was watching Cassie's mom dance with her. They'd grown closer over the past few months, bonding over wedding plans and shared relief that the financial pressure was finally gone. "Thank you," she whispered to me during the mother-son dance. "Not just for the mortgage, for giving me my daughter back." "What do you mean?" I asked. "She'd been pulling away," she explained, "because of how we treated you. She was choosing between us and you, and it was tearing her apart. Now she doesn't have to choose anymore." As we swayed to the music, I thought about my grandfather and wondered what he'd think of this whole situation. I think he would have been proud, not of the money I'd spent, but of the family I'd chosen and the way we'd all learned to choose each other. A year later, when Cassie and I found out we were expecting our first child, her parents were the first people we called. Her mom cried and immediately started making plans to convert their guest room into a nursery. Her dad started researching the best car seats and baby-proofing techniques. "I can't wait to be a grandfather," he told me. "I plan to be much better at that than I was at being a potential father-in-law." "You turned out all right in the end," I said. "Thanks to you," he replied. "You never gave up on us, even when we'd given up on you." But the real test came 6 months later, when Cassie's mom had a recurrence of her cancer. This time, instead of making unilateral decisions about treatment costs and care options, I sat down with the whole family, and we made a plan together. We researched the best treatment centers, compared insurance options, and set up a schedule so she was never alone during chemotherapy. Cassie and I moved into the guest house behind their home for 2 months, so we could help with daily care and transportation. "This is what family looks like," Cassie said one evening as we sat on their back porch, watching her dad tend to the garden he'd started as therapy during her treatment. Not one person swooping in to save everyone else, but everyone working together to take care of each other. Her mom's treatment was successful, and by the time our daughter was born, she was in remission and ready to be the doting grandmother she'd always dreamed of being. We named our daughter Eddie, Edith officially, but Eddie for my grandfather, who taught me that the best inheritance you can leave someone isn't money, it's the knowledge that they're worth fighting for. Her parents spoil her shamelessly, making up for lost time and maybe for the 3 years they spent fighting the wrong battle. Her dad built her a playground in their backyard and teaches her to use child-sized tools. Her mom reads to her for hours and has already started a college fund, not because she needs one, but because she wants to contribute. "I want her to know she's loved by all of us," she explained when she showed us the bank statements. "I want her to grow up feeling secure and supported, the way I should have made you feel from the beginning." 2 years later, when Eddie was old enough to understand stories, I started telling her about her great-grandfather, about how he came to this country with nothing but determination and built a life through hard work and smart choices, about how he taught me that money is just a tool, and the best way to use any tool is to help the people you love. "Will you teach me to use tools too?" she asked, sitting on my lap in the workshop that had once been my grandfather's. "I'll teach you everything," I promised, just like he taught me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never overheard that phone conversation, if I'd never known about the mortgage problems, if I'd let pride and fear keep me from acting. Would her parents have lost their house? Would the financial stress have destroyed our relationship? Would we have found our way to this place of trust and partnership without that dramatic moment of revelation? I don't know, but I know that paying off their mortgage wasn't really about the money. It was about choosing love over pride, generosity over resentment, and family over ego. It was about proving that sometimes the best way to win an argument is to stop fighting and start caring. Her parents still don't entirely understand why I kept the inheritance secret for so long, and honestly, I'm not sure I do either. But they understand that I did it out of love, however misguided. And I understand that their initial rejection of me came from the same place, a fierce love for their daughter and a determination to protect her from anyone who might hurt her. Now, when people ask us how we knew we were right for each other, Cassie always tells the story of the mortgage payoff. Not because it was romantic, though she insists it was in its own way, but because it forced all of us to be honest about what really mattered. "He could have used that money to prove he was better than us," she says. "Instead, he used it to prove he loved us, all of us, even when we didn't deserve it." I always correct her on that last part. "Especially because you deserved it," I say. "You just didn't know it yet." These days, her dad and I are genuine friends. We work on projects together, watch football on Sundays, and argue about the best way to teach Eddie to throw a baseball. Her mom and Cassie plan family vacations and swap parenting advice and cook elaborate meals for holidays we all celebrate together. We bought the house next door last year, together this time, after long discussions about property values and rental income and whether we were ready for the responsibility of being landlords. We turned it into a duplex, and Cassie's parents are considering moving into one half when they're ready to downsize. Full circle, her dad says whenever we talk about it. From not wanting you in the family to wanting you as close neighbors. Some circles are worth completing, I always reply. Last month, Eddie asked me why her grandfather and grandmother love her daddy so much now when they used to be mean to him. It's a complicated question for a 3-year-old, but I tried to give her an honest answer. Sometimes adults make mistakes, I told her. Sometimes we judge people before we really know them. But the best thing about people is that they can change their minds and say they're sorry and do better next time. Like when I'm mean to my toys and then I hug them? She asked. Exactly like that, I said. Except with people, the hugs mean even more. That night, as Cassie and I tucked Eddie into bed in the room that overlooks the garden her grandparents tend together, I thought about all the ways our lives had changed since that dinner 3 years ago. The house that's paid for, the medical bills that are covered, the relationships that have been rebuilt from scratch. But mostly I thought about the lesson my grandfather taught me that I'm now trying to pass on to Eddie, that the best investment you can make isn't in stocks or real estate or even houses with wraparound porches. It's in relationships, in family, in taking care of the people you love, even when they make it hard, especially when they make it hard. Because sometimes the most important inheritance you can leave someone isn't money. It's the knowledge that they're worth fighting for. That love is a verb, not a noun. That family means showing up for each other, even when pride gets in the way. And sometimes, just sometimes, paying off someone's mortgage is exactly the right way to show them who you really are.